Hello, my name is Angela Fioramonti, and I'm a children's librarian at the Cuyahoga Falls Library. I also love escape rooms. I've done probably 4 or 5 on my own with friends just for fun, and my coworker and I have created 3 from scratch escape rooms over the last couple years for our library. So when I saw how virtual escape rooms were taking off amongst libraries during this time, I definitely wanted to try my hand at creating one. I managed to make a virtual escape room for kindergartners through second graders called Trapped in the Toy Room. And I thought I would record this video to give you sort of a behind the scenes look at what went into the creation of it. So I hope you enjoy. For the purposes of this presentation, I thought it would be best to start off with a blank canvas. So the first thing you need to do is sign into your Google account. You can certainly use a personal account, or if you'd prefer, you can set up a generic account specifically for this type of project. Once you've done the sign-in, you can go to google.com/forms and go ahead and click over here on a blank presentation. And then that will allow us to start from scratch. Google Forms actually works quite well for virtual escape rooms. I've found I've at least had quite a bit of success with it. There are some limitations, but for the most part, it's going to do the things that you need it to do. Now, before we get started actually creating an escape room, we need to ask ourselves a couple questions and make some decisions. So the first question that I always ask myself is, who is this escape room for? What age am I going to be targeting? You're going to have a very different escape room for teenagers than you'll have for, 3rd to 5th graders. For my escape room, I decided I wanted to focus on a younger group. So I made my escape room with kindergartners through 2nd graders in mind. Now, that being said, it is a very simple escape room. It probably gears toward the lower end of that range, but part of the fun of an escape room is the feeling of accomplishment when you succeed. So I definitely didn't want to make it too tricky for such a young age group, and I liked the idea that 1st and 2nd graders might be able to do it without the help of a parent. The second question that I think we need to ask ourselves is, how much of an escape room do we want this to be? So in my mind, there's a very fine line between an online escape room and an online quiz. You don't want to just set up 10 different questions that might involve trivia or math problems and just have people answer them to get out of the room. Escape rooms should all contain some sort of element of puzzling, of taking clues and putting them together to get to an answer. So you're going to have to decide how you want to approach that. Again, since this was intended for a younger audience, I didn't want to make it too complex and confusing in terms of logic puzzles. So what I ended up doing was I formed sort of an overarching puzzle. They needed to collect letters to get to their final answer to escape the room, and then along the way we practiced some different skills that I thought would be appropriate for kindergarten through 2nd grade. So there is a bit of an escape room element, but I think, for older groups, you can certainly expand upon that and make it a little bit trickier. So now that we have an age group picked out and we have a general idea of the level of trickiness we'd like to incorporate into our escape room, it's time to tackle the nuts and bolts. So, the very first thing that you can do is give your escape room a title. You can put a description right below it, but these question sections are going to make up the bulk of your digital escape room. Now, Google Forms gives you a number of options as to what kind of question you could create, which I found really helpful to have that wide variety of options when I was creating my escape room. So I'm just going to put some really basic questions in here to give you guys an idea of how this works. So we're going to start off with, what is the color of the sky? Okay, so over to the right here, you can see that you have a number of options in terms of what you want this question to look like. So multiple choice is a great way to start. You can see over here it autofills an option 1 for you, and I can change that to put green. You can just click below it and add red or blue. So we have our question, we have our multiple choices. Now, obviously, some of these are incorrect. And what's really great about Google Forms is it gives you the opportunity for response validation. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a required question, which means people can't skip it. And then we're going to click on these 3 dots. Now, for multiple choice, you want to choose go to section based on answer. So it'll pop up with these options of continue to next section. Now, we don't have any other sections yet, so this is a really great opportunity to show you how to put one in. If you look at your list of tools over here, the first one is add a question. You can import questions from a previous form. You can add title and description, add an image, add a video, and down here this little equal sign is add a section. So I'm actually going to add 2 sections right now. And this one I'm going to title not quite, try again, and then this one we'll put correct, well done, the sky is blue. Now, if we click on our initial question up here, you can see that these all still read continue to next section. In this case, the next section is section 2, which is not quite try again. So what we want to do is pair each of these answers with the correct section. So green is obviously not correct, so we're going to pair that with section 2, same for red. But our blue answer, we want to send to section 3 for correct. So that is a really simple way to direct folks to the next section that they need to go to. Now, in some instances, a multiple choice option might not be the best fit for the question that you're asking. So, like I said, Google gives us a lot of options here. You could also do a drop down, and that'll function very similarly to a multiple choice. They'll just click the little down arrow and be able to choose their answer, and you can still then pair those answers with a particular section. Now, things get a little bit different if you're going for a short answer. So in this case, you know, we have our question, what is the color of the sky? But we don't have a list of options. So what we're going to do is go back over here to our 3 dots, and this time we're going to choose response validation. All right, and then this gives you some options as to tailor the specifics of the answer you're looking for. So obviously a number option is not going to do us any good for the color of the sky, so I'm going to go ahead and choose text. And then you have some options here. Typically, you're probably going to choose contains, and we want our answer to be blue. You can also include a custom error text, not quite, try again. Now, one thing to keep in mind about Google Forms is it's a little bit finicky and it is case sensitive. So if somebody were to type in as their short answer blue in all caps, Google Forms would not recognize that as a correct answer. I know, it's a little bit frustrating. So what I've taken to doing is when I'm setting up my question, you need to make sure you're asking for all lowercase, all capitals, you know, capitalize the first letter of each word. There needs to be some directive for the individuals who are doing your escape room. You never want to set your patrons up for failure. You know, escape rooms can be so frustrating if you think you know the answer but it's not working. You should never have to guess at an answer in an escape room. So not only do you need to indicate about the lowercase, uppercase, you know, whatever combination you're using, but you also need to make sure that you have given them the clues to be confident that blue is indeed the correct answer. You know, sometimes the sky can look gray, it might look a little purple. You are hopefully giving them the clues to point to the fact that blue is the answer you're asking for. Now, you may have noticed that with the short answer option, we don't have anything over to the side here to direct us to a particular section. In this case, you'll just utilize this option down below the question, where once they have successfully answered it, you can just continue to next section. You just need to make sure then that the next section is indeed the correct section. Side note, you will absolutely want to test your escape room through multiple times before you send it out into the world. I had my husband look at it, my mom look at it, I had my coworkers look at it, and I played it through probably about 10 times just to ensure that all of my bases were covered and that everything worked properly. When you're testing, you're also going to want to test the wrong answers. It's not going to do your patrons any good if we go back to the multiple choice option here and they click red and it takes them to the correct page. So you want to check your wrong answers as well. Just a couple more tips on Google Forms if you get a little bit mixed up with your sections. Let's see, we're going to add another question here just to add something to the mix. These 6 dots at the top enable you to reorder. So if you decide that you want this question to be your first one, you can just drag it up above your "what is the color of the sky" question. You can also add images to questions, and this is a really helpful way to communicate clues and hints in Google Forms. You can actually use a program or an app, I suppose, called Google Draw to create clickable images. Now, this is a really cool option for escape rooms. I myself haven't explored it yet, so I'm not going to get into that in this tutorial, but know that that is out there if you're really interested in making a clickable image. It involves putting the Google Draws image on Google's site, so it's a little bit more complicated than what we're getting into here. But if you want to add an image, you could just click Add Image. It'll allow you to upload, based on what you have saved in your files by the camera, URL, photos, Google Drive, Google Image Search. We have a picture in our Google Drive from an alien escape room we did. So I'm going to go ahead and load that. And you can see it appears below the question. You can make images their own section. You can attach them to a question like this. There are a few different options there, and that's really just about playing around and seeing what order works best for you. Now, this add title and description, I didn't use it a ton in my escape room, but it is useful if you want a little bit of backstory or description, some exposition, and you don't want to ask any questions. So I think that about covers all the ins and outs, the basic ins and outs, at least, of using Google Forms to create a virtual escape room. So now I want to switch over and show you guys sort of the behind the scenes of the escape room that I already created. Okay, so this is my escape room titled Trapped in the Toy Room. Now, when I spoke before about getting an idea for the age that you were creating for and just how tricky you wanted this to be, I can give you more of a concrete idea about that, talking about this escape room. So, like I said, it was going to be for younger kids, kindergarten through 2nd grade, and I thought that we would focus on, kindergarten, 1st grade level skills, and that those skills would build toward the clues you needed to solve the final puzzle. So I would say my final puzzle is the one that's most traditionally escape room-like. So you can see here I have my intro, just some background information on who created this, where the graphics came from, etc. I used Canva. My coworkers and I use Canva all the time, and we cannot recommend it enough. We have a nonprofit account with them, and it gives us access to so many images, and I think it's really upped our game when it comes to marketing and creating, graphics. So then we head into the summary, setting the stage. So this is a very simple one. It's you're walking down a hallway, you see a door you've never seen before. When you walk inside, there are toys everywhere, but you don't notice that the door has closed behind you. Later, you start to smell some delicious cookies, but when you try to leave the toy room, the door is locked. So this takes us to the letter lock. Again, this was a graphic that I made in Canva, and I just wanted to give people an idea of a lock on a door. So here is my 5-letter lock, and this is to indicate that they're going to need 5 letters to escape. So I also mentioned that they need to grab a paper and pencil, and they can keep track of the letters as they find them. So then here we get into my puzzles. So the kindergarten, first grade level skills that I decided to focus on were rhyming, counting, patterning, sequencing, things like that. And so I built these very simple puzzle graphics. I also did a lot of imagining of what this escape room might look like in person and then how to translate that to a digital experience. So I really liked the idea of, imagine yourself in an escape room and you look over and there are all these puzzle pieces. Puzzle pieces are a classic escape room item. You always need to figure out how you're matching them up. So in this case, as I'm sure you are all able to tell, we've got car and star, hat and cat, house and mouse. So we're obviously going for a rhyming theme here. And then we have a train puzzle piece that is unattached to anything. Now, for this question, I could have leapt right in and just said which puzzle piece matches the train. And I have a feeling that most kids who are taking this quiz, are going to guess rain. Not only does it rhyme, it also has the right location of the puzzle piece to fit with it. But I wanted to do a little bit more hand-holding. Just as I said, this is geared toward a very young age. You don't want people feeling frustrated as they're playing. Frustration is a little bit different from difficulty, I think. And I'm fine with a challenge, but you don't want people to feel stuck. So I did want to give them a little bit more guidance. So I first asked, what do the puzzle pieces have in common? They all start with the same letter, they all rhyme, they're all animals. And here you can see again that I've got these tied to particular sections. So they all rhyme is our correct answer. That will take us to section 6, that's right. And then I show them the picture again, because you want to think about the user experience. So if they're looking at a picture and then clicking through to the next section, they might still need that picture for reference. So you may need to post it again. So here then we've got which puzzle piece matches the train. It's the rain in this case. And again, the different answers will send us to different sections. Now, this I was really excited about, because, again, in an escape room, if you match the puzzle pieces together, there is probably going to be some sort of hint, clue, answer that forms. And so I liked the idea of, look, we've linked these 2 puzzle pieces together, and it's given us one of our letters. So, again, instead of just telling them what letter it was, I wanted them to practice their letter recognition. And so they've got some multiple choice options as to which letter it might be. This next question is also fairly similar to a typical escape room. Often in escape rooms you'll have locked boxes, and sometimes those locks might be letters, they might be numbers, they could be directional, you might just have a key and a padlock. So this was my attempt at a recreation of a 3-number lock. So we've got a treasure chest, or a toy box. That made a lot of sense to me for a toy room. And you can see here we've got 3 different flowers, some white spaces underneath with a number symbol inside, and then a picture. Again, in terms of guidance, I added these number symbols specifically to indicate what they were looking for. I think older kids would probably be able to make that leap themselves to say, we're looking for flowers, we have different numbers of each flower, this needs numbers. But for the younger group, I just wanted to give them that little extra assistance. So we've got our first look at the treasure chest, and then down here I've got a close-up of the picture, and I encourage them to use their paper and pencil at this point to make note of what they observe. So as you can see here, we've got 4 purple flowers, we have 6 yellow flowers, and we've got 3 pink flowers, except we've also got 2 additional pink flowers over here on our friend. And so this was one of the ways that I snuck in a little bit of trickiness. I know my husband and my mom both missed those couple flowers at first. So that was kind of a fun way to make it just a slight bit harder. So they just need to count the flowers and then put the numbers in. And again, I was very specific with my questions. You know, I specifically asked what numbers will open the chest, no spaces. And you can see if I click in here, we've got our choice of number. We want it to be equal to 645, and then there's our error text, you know, in case they input it incorrectly. The treasure chest pops open, and inside you find the following items, all of which begin with the letter H. So there is their second letter. They now have an A and an H. For our next section, this was the patterning one. Again, I liked the idea that you might go over to a craft table with a whole bunch of beads and bracelets. But look, the last bracelet only has 5 beads. It's missing one. And so for this, I used a drop-down option. I was a little bit worried about little ones spelling a color correctly on the first try. I thought that it might be more likely that they could choose it from a drop-down menu than putting in the answer on their own. So again, that's where that age group comes in. You know, for older children, for adults certainly, you might want to make a question like this a short answer. But for the little ones, I wanted to do a drop-down. For the drop-down, you know, if we click over here to see all of the options, again, these are directed to particular sections. So when they get it right, they've got an image of the next black bead they need to use, and on this image is our letter R. Now this was our sequencing one. Again, I built all of these images using Canva. Canva is really great and really helpful. I know sequencing is a big thing for younger grades, and so I just built these images and then labeled them with completely out of order numbers so that they would need to figure out which order to put these in. Again, I was worried that this one would be a little bit tricky, and so I made it multiple choice as opposed to a short answer. This time, so this was, I didn't actually make the fridge, I'm just realizing. Similar to the treasure chest is we've got a refrigerator that's locked and there's a spot to enter in 4 numbers. So when the fridge opens, you get a pizza. We've got a pepperoni pizza that spells out the I. Now, this was also a source of frustration for me in terms of forms being finicky, because I was very limited in what fonts I could choose. And I realized as I was doing this that none of the uppercase I's had the little hat on the top and the bottom. So I was a little frustrated by that, because that means a capital I looks exactly like a lowercase l. So in this instance, I made the choice to have them make the letter I lowercase as opposed to all the letters, the other letters which were uppercase. I'm still a little bit annoyed about it because I really love consistency, but I had already made a lot of these graphics by the time I realized this. So I will know for next time that maybe we want to focus on just the lowercase, but yeah, for future reference, the uppercase I in Google Forms is going to look like a lowercase l. So now we've got A, H, R, and I, and this took us to another chest. Now, this is a pretty simple challenge of counting and sort of habitat recognition. And this was a really simple one to make. So I just repeated the chest. The chest, it doesn't have, flowers or animals above the number spaces to indicate specifically what those numbers might be, but it's decorated to look like the ocean floor. And then you're faced with a collection of animal figurines. So again, I did a little bit more leading with this, and I asked, does it seem like maybe certain animals belong in the chest? If you're looking to make this more challenging, just leave that hint out. Just give them the picture, and hopefully they'll be able to figure it out on their own. So again, we have a number, it's equal to 14, and now they've got their final letter. So now we have the letter C, and that is our fifth letter. We've got A, H, R, I, and C. Now, in some cases, this is going to depend on how you have things set up. It might just be a word they need to unscramble. It might be that you want them to put those letters in the order they found them. But you probably need some additional clue to indicate what they're going to do with those letters. And again, that's a clue that you can make as complicated as you like. It just depends on what difficulty level you're looking for. Again, I was going very simple, and so I've got a rhyme here. I have 4 legs, 2 arms, 1 back. You sit on me to eat a snack. I rhyme with hair and bear and care. Come on, sit down. I am a chair. Exactly. So then I prompt for what the final password is. It's going to be all lowercase, so it's text that contains chair. And then I gave them a little bit of an image to show how that might have looked if they were putting that in real life. So after this, congratulations, you've escaped. You step into your hallway, and look at that, you are rewarded with some cookies. I also put a final section here, totally optional, just to collect some information on those who were playing. So I've got some age groups here. For this one, I wanted to do a check all that applies, since I know people might have been working together. A general idea of location, and then I always love suggestions for how I can improve upon things in the future. I would say that the number one suggestion I got for this escape room was that it could be a little bit more difficult, which is a very fair assessment. Again, I wanted it to be very simple and very doable. In retrospect, it might even be more suited to like 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. But the response has been really positive so far, which has been, really fun and really exciting. So that is kind of the general overview of how I put this together. I certainly hope to see lots more virtual escape rooms out there, as I think they're such a fun and creative way to get your patrons get their brains thinking. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope there was some information in here that was helpful to you, and I really look forward to seeing lots of virtual escape rooms in the future for a variety of ages. Have a good day, everyone.